Nico's pick of the week was the 2019 film Yesterday.
No, it wasn't.
Holy shit. Oh yeah, you're right. Tanner's pick of the week actually was the 2019 film Yesterday. I got the two mixed up. Whoops.
Yesterday is the story of a struggling musician who gets hit by a bus and then wakes up only to discover the Beatles no longer exist. And so he decides to become famous by just playing their music, and hijinks ensue. Fun fact, the Liverpool International Airport that we see in the film, in real life, is actually the Liverpool John Lennon Airport.
Oh.
What an ode.
Bonus fun fact on that topic, the John Lennon who we see in this film is actually John Lennon. They managed to get him to come back to reprise his role in this film.
Yeah, they brought him back from the dead. I think this is a delightful little film.
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
I guess some criticisms. I wish it went a bit harder in the paint with some of its decisions. Ultimately, like, I specifically think with the romance, ultimately I'm fine with where it landed, where he decided to give up the fame in order to gain the girl. I kind of wish that they hadn't, just a little prior to that, really made her go, it's fucking over, we're done for, it's never happening. Yeah. I think if they left it a bit more like, oh, he does still have a chance, it would have come across better. Yeah. I also wish they had played up the, like, him losing himself in the fame and feeling like a fraud thing. Yeah. It's that those elements are there. I don't think they go into them quite as deeply as I would really like from this movie.
Yeah, it feels like they did. My turn to talk because I'm the one that's the most loud, I guess, right now. I do think it is weird how they really like build up a lot of tension with the Russian guy and then like the old British woman, and then the whole point of that, all of that, I guess, was just to be some touching scene. But I feel like they could have done a lot more with that whole setup than they did, especially because they kind of just like, they give him like a really easy out to just totally be fine with what he's doing right now. Like, it makes it even like his ending decision less justified, honestly, in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the people that do remember spontaneously still are like totally fine with what he's doing and they appreciate it. Like, obviously, that's a very, what's the word? Like he like donated all of like the Beatles songs to society, and that's cool and whatever, and he's fine with not the fame. But like, why not have both? Why not have your cake and eat it too?
I kind of like what they ended up doing with them, where they're like, well, we just like that the music gets to exist again. I like that sort of stance there. Mm-hmm. I kind of agree. They could have done something a bit more interesting with those characters.
Especially since like, they mention while those characters are, speaking to him about the shit, is they're like, without the Beatles, the world is so much infinitely worse, so we're happy that you're bringing their music still. But like, nothing about the world really seems different whatsoever without the Beatles in it.
Oh no, people don't smoke anymore.
Yeah, it's like a weird forced agenda kind of feeling, even though it's not really, don't take that word for word when I say that.
Pro-Beatles agenda. Big Beatle.
When they word it as, the world is just worse without the Beatles, it kind of almost pushes, like, the plot of this movie a little too hard, I think. And I was really, like, trying to look for Easter eggs throughout the movie of, like, why certain things just didn't exist, like cigarettes was one thing, Coke was another thing, like, certain random figures, and I was trying to pick apart this movie, trying to figure out, like, okay, is there a reason these don't exist, like, what's this, and then I was really hoping they'd break into the backstory of the two random people who also got there, like, how they got there, and for some reason...
I think that would have been pretty far outside the scope of this movie and would have been a real distraction had they done that.
I also expected this movie to go in a different direction. No, I'm not saying I'm displeased with how the movie ended, but I expected this to end with, like, some kind of either, like, psycho trip where it was just, like, he got hit by the bus and he'd been in a trance the whole time and he realized, the life... I mean, either way, this is the result he got, but, like, he realized the life he was trying to go for was not the life he would have wanted.
Yeah, I was fully expecting he, like, goes back to his world and he had, like, learned a lesson or something, so I thought it was kind of unique for these sorts of like, oh, I got teleported somewhere weird story where he does stay, and so his choices actually kind of matter to the world, you know?
which was super cool. And like I formulated like an ending where I was like, wouldn't it be funny like sometime like in his sleep he got reverted back to his own world, but like was going where he was supposed to perform or whatever, he starts performing a song or something stupid, or like maybe in the middle of his performance he gets ripped back to his other world and he's like performing and then he gets hit with like copyrights because he's back in the world where the Beatles exist or something stupid like that, you know, whatever. I was expecting like a different kind of dramatic ending, but like I said, I'm not gonna press like what I wanted this movie to be. I still thought this movie was really good. I agree with the love interest thing, where it's like they did a 180 where she's like, it's either me or your career, and then he made a choice, didn't make a choice, and it was kind of reflective on like maybe there's like bits of like the producing world or like the artist world or the celebrity world that we don't understand, or maybe there's pressures that we aren't aware of, you know, kind of stuff, where like the artists aren't fully in control at all times, and sometimes it's just like the producers or like the agents or whatever, or the managers pushing their own agenda so they can get what they want, that like ultimately ends up ruining the lives of the artists or the producers, and then that kind of just spreads outward in a shockwave. But yeah, I thought this movie was adorable. I can't, outside of like what I just said, I can't really fault this movie for anything else. I thought it was pretty well made.
I like how their relationship like was them like starting a family and shit. I thought that was very wholesome. A lot of times movies like this, it's like, oh dude, they're gonna be together because they're like they're attracted to each other or some shit, you know, and that's like the full depth of why they're together. One final piece of praise from me, I thought the sort of meeting John Lennon thing was done well.
Yeah, I thought that part was really sweet.
Yeah, a lot of times I get very creeped out by us, like, bringing back the dead and, like, interacting with them and, like, sort of putting, you know, words in their mouth, essentially. But this scene didn't really trigger those feelings in me. I was like, oh, that's, like, sweet, and you know, they gave him a nice, peaceful life, and he's not, you know, he wasn't acting weird or whatever. Like, oh, this feels like a scene made by someone who actually like fucking cared about the Beatles and John Lennon, you know. And I do believe one other fun fact I read was that technically they just had to pay pay whatever the record company is for the rights to use the Beatles music, but they actually did go to like Paul, Ringo, and then the estates of John and George and actually say, hey, we're making this movie with this idea, do we have your blessing about that? And they said yes, so I think that's pretty cool of them.
Yeah, that was pretty nice of them to do.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I'll add to your positive note there, back to what I was saying before about the end of the movie, how I thought it was going to go. I thought it was like a really introspective thing when he went to go visit John Lennon, because that was like, because I guess what they were trying to portray is in that world, the Beatles exist, but the individuals, or the Beatles don't exist, the individuals do. So when he seeks out John Lennon, it's kind of like a, hey, this is like the life the Beatles would have lived if they had not pursued being the Beatles. Is this the life you would want over the life you currently have? Which he was starting to realize he really hated and resented the life he was about to live. So then he got a glimpse into what his life could be, where it was just like a comfy home out on the coast, you know, sipping coffee on a whatever morning, just enjoying the breeze, enjoying the day. And he's like, I think that's where, like, if you were like in the movie enough, you could feel like the mental click where he's like, this is what I want, this is what I have to do, and that's where his plans begin to roll into motion, which sets off the ending where he starts confessing his love to the girl, and, you know, we saw the rest of the movie. So I thought that was a really nice introspective look to get the audience to, like, think what the movie's saying without them having to say it.
One last piece of criticism that I just remembered. Why is there a montage set to an Ed Sheeran song in this movie?
Because Ed Sheeran's a big character in the movie.
Yeah, he plays a big
I know,
part.
but like,
Yeah, that was a little strange.
it should be a Beatles song. Like, you can play Ed Sheeran music because, you know, it's a story about music or whatever, but like when it's sort of that kind of stuff where it's music that's only for us, the audience, because the characters are not hearing it in the movie, like, let's keep it consistent and make it a Beatles song, please.
I'm sure it was like an Ed Sheeran or Ed Sheeran's agent or manager kind of thing. They were like, yeah, we could have Ed Sheeran in it, but we want his music in it too.
That'd be incredibly lame if that is the case.
I wouldn't put it past them, Tanner, to be honest.
All right, so back to a point I was trying to make previously before you piece of shit cut me off. So, when those people came to talk to him about the Beatles, and they talked to him about how, like, yeah, the world would be so much worse if the Beatles weren't in or whatever the fuck. And again, it doesn't really feel like that's the case in this world. Everything seems pretty much the same. I think it would have been really nice if, that point was illustrated a lot more with, like, something that, like, as many people say, like, oh, yeah, the Beatles, like, they inspired, like, all these great bands and stuff like that. I think it would have been really cool if it was like, oh, there are, like, all these other bands also don't exist. Like, the only fucking people who we really see is Oasis, and that's about it, where it's like, oh, Oasis apparently doesn't exist either. I think if, like, all these other bands also didn't exist, or, like, they did, like, fucking different things or something like that, or maybe they were much smaller than they actually were, like, some sort of other music took off instead of, like, what we currently have, I think that sort of stuff would have been much cooler to see, and it really would have sold that idea much more.
I think part of the reason they didn't do that is just because, like, that opens up the door for so many weird, like, plot holes and people being like, well, if this is the case, then why isn't this? And why this is this like this and blah, blah, blah.
I agree. I think all of this would be remedied if they didn't say the Beatles make this world infinitely better or whatever the fuck.
I guess they could just mean that in, like, oh, it's such nice music.
It
could just be
one other fun fact I read. Is they originally were thinking, oh, let's make it so that the color purple doesn't exist in this world, and then they decided that was way too fucking complicated and immediately dropped the idea.
That'd be very fun. I would have liked if they did that.
Mm-hmm.
What's purple? Bro, fucking, that would be so hilarious.
Yeah. So, okay, going back to the whole relationship that he has with Ellie in this film, okay, I do have problems with that as well here. I think it's nice how, like, things end, but I feel like it's really unclear as to why our main character never made the moves on her this entire time. Like, the only thing he really says is, oh, you were like Ellie, we, like, grew up together or whatever the fuck. But, like, all these years, he just was never seemingly interested in her, apparently, until she was like, oh, I'm in love with you. And no way, I love you too, that's crazy, now that I can't have you, I want to have you, this is insane. Like, where did any of this come from?
I thought the implication was that he was in fact in love with her this entire time, he just didn't ever make the move because it never felt like it was reciprocated. Which I think is understandable given her response to, like, the fucking sex thing when they were at the festival. I feel like that's pretty representative of how he, viewed their relationship throughout them, being friends. Which I understand. I think they're trying to go for, like, this is like a relatable issue with the audience of, like, oh no, you like a person, but, like, you don't know if you like them, so you just, have cold feet and you never make the joke.
I mean, this might have just been a throwaway line, and it probably 100% is. I remember pretty early in the movie when they were at, like, the whatever festival she got him a gig at or whatever, he was all like, oh, she's my manager, that would just be weird. So,
yeah.
It could be a throwaway line. It could not be. I could see that being, like, a real life complication where if they date and it doesn't work out, well, fuck up, he doesn't have a music manager anymore, or it's awkward. So
yeah, I think the point is just supposed to be like he never had the confidence to ask her out, and now he does.
I feel like we just didn't really get that though, and that's my main issue there.
The whole, like, bait switch with the ex, or not the ex, but, like, the other dude is weird as fuck too. It felt very out of place to me.
He just seems so cool with it too.
I think it's just supposed to be a comedy beat, I guess.
It looked like he had another person or a date or whatever anyway, so I guess it didn't really matter.
He traded up, honestly. Also, I just find it very irritating how, like, these two people are just fucking never able to sit down and have a conversation with each other. They're just constantly being interrupted. It gets on my nerves.
It happens, dude.
It's very funny.
And aside from that, I do have one final complaint about this film. So, like... And by the way, Tanner took my big praise I had for, which was the John Lennon scene. That's why I sound so negative right now. I wanted to end all this with that part, but alas, you're just getting a bunch of vitriol right now. So, like, I think that really one of my biggest issues with this film is that it doesn't really feel like he's as big and famous as they keep telling us he is. And, like... Especially just like when they keep telling us, they're like, oh, you're like the songwriter of like the century, whatever. You're the greatest songwriter ever to exist. This is amazing. You're so fucking cool. Why exactly is that? It's just like, oh yeah, he has the Beatles songs. But like, I don't know. They don't sound that great, okay? They don't sound that absurdly different to like any of the other shit that other people are doing.
I mean, to go on with what you were saying, like they say he's the greatest songwriter. it does eventually, this was just a feeling I was getting, it did eventually feel like towards the end of the movie, when they start getting to the nitty-gritty, the details of it, it's like, oh, how do you come up with, like, the idea for the songs? What do your songs mean? And they start to get to understand his songs, because most songs have meaning or stories behind them.
He doesn't ever explain what the songs mean or anything, though.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. He doesn't, like, he himself doesn't internalize it. So I think it's supposed to give that feeling of, yeah, why is he the greatest, like, songwriter? He doesn't have, like, the meaning to, like, back up what he's putting out, kind of thing. So it's supposed to be like almost like a meta, I hesitate to say meta thing, but I think the feeling you're feeling is, like, intentional. Like, I think the movie wanted that to happen, because I got the same kind of feeling.
Yeah, there maybe should have been, like, a montage of him going to massive concerts that he's headlining or something to really give off the feeling that he's as big as they're telling us he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a lot of jumping around, I guess.
Yeah, because, like, all we really got was that there was, like, a montage of, like, oh, his videos are blowing up on social media, and then also, like, when he goes to the airport, there's, like, a small group of people who chase after him. Mm-hmm. I feel like, you know, when he's, like, at the airport or some shit like that, there should have been a lot more people or something to just clue us in more as, like, just how famous he is at this point.
No, to be fair, nobody knew he was going to that airport. That was an off-the-record flight.
But why was there a group of people who chased after him when he landed?
They just, they spotted him and they were like, oh my god, there he is.
Exactly, it should have been happening more.
I don't know, dude.
Crazy stuff. Yeah, they could have had, like, you know, people constantly, like, walking up to him and being like, oh, can I have your autograph?
Yeah.
In fact, that would have been, like, a more organic way of him, like, not being able to have a conversation with Ellie.
Yeah.
It's like, in that, it kind of would have driven the point home a bit more where, you know, people are constantly coming up to him and be like, dude, oh my gosh, I'm such a big fan. He's like, I'm trying to have a conversation here. But yeah. Jackson, do you have any thoughts on this movie?
No.
Okay.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cute.
Fair enough.
Honestly, I guess one thing, just like the cinematography style with it, I don't really fully grasp what Tanner's talking about when he talks about, like, the A24 style, and I know this isn't a fucking A24 film, but, like, it just had, like, I don't know, just, like, a weird, like, modern movie cinematography aesthetic to it. I don't know. I didn't really, like, jive with it super well, to be honest. But I can't really place my finger down on exactly why that is. I think some things were done well, but other things were just kind of strange to me.
Suddenly everything that Tanner's been spitting at A24 is coming together now.
This is a completely vibes-based criticism. That's barely even a criticism.
I do think eventually Jackson is 100% going to understand what I mean with my A24 criticisms, and he's going to join me.
I got it a little bit with Midsommar, but then when we watched, like, the most recent one, I didn't... Oh, fucking...
Pearl.
Yeah, Pearl. I didn't really understand what you're talking about with the context of that one.
You also really liked Midsommar, though.
Yeah, I know, but, like, that's... I don't know if that adds credence to me understanding why he doesn't like that style, I guess.
Gotcha, okay.
Anyway...
Yeah, that's our rankings of this film.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and go first. I gave this one an A-.
Wow.
Dylan, what about you?
A+.
Wow.
I thought you said this was a midweek. What?
I forgot I watched this movie.
Okay.
Anything short of S is mid to him.
No, I remember... Yeah, and go on.
I'm a little shorter on you guys. I gave it a B+ personally.
Okay.
I tried some context. I don't know anything about the fucking Beatles. I don't care about the Beatles. I've literally never listened to, like, any of their songs. You could play some lyrics, and I probably couldn't even tell you it was the Beatles. Anyways.
That's probably good context
Crazy.
to have.
Wow.
Oh man, I'm in an interesting dilemma here. I'm in between A- and B+, because I really like this film, but one thing I just can't help thinking about it is that this movie has, in my opinion, an amazing premise. I think the premise is so fucking good, and they just fall a bit short of what it could be, in my opinion. And so, director, you're not watching this, but if you are, I think you got something special here. I think, you know, just internalize all the criticisms you got in this movie and then make, like, basically a spiritual sequel where it's the exact same thing, but it's Michael Jackson instead of the Beatles, and I think you'll have a fucking banger on your hands. But, oh man, do I want to go A- or B+?
So I guess while you're thinking about that, I'll give us a bonus fun fact about this film. which is that the original screenplay for this was very different. It was actually written by the oldest person who has ever sold a screenplay, or their first screenplay. The dude was like in his 60s or some shit like that. And this is the very first one he sold. Apparently the premise was just so strong, the dude wanted to make the film.
Dude, good for him.
And the ending is very different, I guess. I don't think he ever like actually gets big. He just like, it's a much more introspective piece where it's like, oh, I know all these Beatles songs, but I'm just like not very good, and like it's all my fault that I'm not doing well.
Yeah, I think I also read, in the original version of the script, it's like not as much a comedy, and it's way like sadder and darker.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad they didn't do that. I don't think that would have been very fun. Fuck, dude. I'll go A- for now.
Whoa.
That might be dropping 1 later.
Holy shit.
And that puts it at an A- overall.
Wow.
Pretty solid.